Hi, I'm Stephen Patterson from Matisse Derivan, and today we're going to have some fun with colour mixing. Now the first thing to understand with colour mixing is probably the way colour works. When we see colour, what we actually see is light being reflected into a colour and then certain wavelengths being reflected back out again. So when we see white, we're actually seeing the full spectrum of light being reflected back out. When we see the various other colours, we're seeing some colours being absorbed, but other colours coming out. And when we see black, we're seeing the absorption of, well, in reality, not all light. In theory, it's all light, but that's really a black hole. If we didn't have anything being reflected back, we wouldn't actually be able to see it. So, when we see different colours, if this was a graph, if we saw a green, for instance, we would see a spike here in the green area, but we might actually see a few other spikes along the way. And this is, you'll see this when you see various colours, such as in the green range, you'll have phthalo green, which would spike maybe here with some blue, quite a bit of blue, whereas Australian sap green, for instance, will have more yellow in it, and various other bits and pieces as we go down, various other wavelengths. And this is the way we see different colours. It's a little bit like a tuning fork. If you were to hit a tuning fork on the table, you'll always get the energy going in is hitting it on the table. You'll always get the same wavelength and frequency coming out. A similar thing when light hits a colour, the same sort of wavelength comes out. So we're going to go ahead and mix some colours up here. So we've got the three primaries here, but you may have noticed that there's actually 6 tubes. And what we've got is the primaries that are closest to each other, or closer to each other, because what we want to do is we want to keep the third primary out to mix a nice clean secondary or tertiary colour. Now what I mean by that, we take phthalo blue or thalocyanine blue, which is a very green or yellow blue, and we're going to mix that with a really cool or a really cool yellow light Hansa. When I say cool, I mean that it leans more towards blue. So when we mix these two together, we're going to be keeping the red out of the mixture. Because the thing is, when you mix all 3 colours together, we're getting back to, or 6 colours together, we're getting back to it what we would get theoretical black, or in reality a sort of muddy colour. So when you've ended up with mud before, what's happened is you've ended up with the 3 primaries all being mixed in together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mix those up, and we'll come back. So now I've mixed up a couple of the colours. We'll just finish off here, making a purple. And a thing to remember, where I mix the green up here, some colours are much stronger than others, and that's just to do with the pigmentation, the loading, the type of pigment, the way they work. So here the phthalo blue, for instance, is a very strong colour. So you want to take the blue to the yellow. The reds and yellows aren't too bad with the difference. Now I'm going to a little bit more paint here and get this to a yellow rather than a yellow. Purple we want. Stop talking to yourself. So here we're mixing up a purple. We'll come in here with something like a magenta, and we want this to be really blue so we get a nice violet out of it. Okay, we'll probably make this purple a little deeper. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of white to each one of these colours just so you can see the undertone. And then, as we're doing that, I'll talk about using the complementary for shadows. Now, this is an interesting part of using colour. So I'm just going to mix this out so you can see how it looks. Mixed out with white. And violet here. And the same, this nice turquoise colour. Green. And then into the light green. And round to this yellow deep, although it's probably a little bit orange, and a little bit more white in there. Now, as I say, the idea with these colours that we're using is to keep the third primary out. So what we've got is the lemon yellow, or the Hansa yellow light, mixing with the phthalo blue. We've got the cadmium yellow medium mixed with the Matisse red light. Cad yellow medium is a nice mid to warm yellow. The Matisse red light, at least, is quite a warm red, but not a scarlet. The brilliant alizarin next to it it's a brilliant alizarin crimson as opposed to just an alizarin crimson. It's quite a bright colour, a very bright colour, versus a lot of other alizarins. You want to take it back a little bit, like we've done here. You can just add a little bit of ultra blue to it, and that'll back it off a little bit. We've got our secondary and tertiary colours here mixed up. Now what we're going to do is add the complementary. Now, why do we want to do that? Okay, well, if we want some shadow, what we want to do is take the complementary of the colour. And what that means is the colour that's on the other side of the colour wheel from it. Now, to do that, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to mix our yellow up to get a mid-yellow. And I've taken the complementary of the yellow, which is purple. And you can see I've got a nice, rich, deep yellow shadow there. Now, if I wanted to take this, and we're going to use this for shadows, obviously, if I want to take this colour and in my scene, if I'm doing a landscape and I want the colours to recede or to move back, what I want to do generally is to cool that colour down. So the way I'm going to do that is I've got my yellow, and rather than taking the exact opposite on the colour wheel, so the purple, what I want to do is take something that's a little bit cooler. So I'm going to move around and actually use this violet. I'll clean my palette knife off first. I'm going to use the violet to get a cooler version. So I'm actually going to put it over this side. So I'll mix the yellow together to get my mid-yellow, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the violet, and we should end up with a cooler shadow. Whereas, I need a little bit more yellow back in there. So this will recede off into the distance for a shadow receding off into the distance. Whereas, if I take the same yellow and mix this together without it getting too dirty, because the knife's dirty, and take some of this magenta and mix it with my yellow, we're going to end up with a warmer shadow. Okay, I'll probably overemphasize that a little bit. I'll just back it off a little bit with a little bit more yellow. So you can see here we've got this, I've probably, as I say, overemphasized a little bit, but we've got the warmer shadow. It's still the same yellow, the warmer shadow, the cooler shadow. So if we were doing a yellow that was closer to us, we'd use the warmer one, the cooler one, and then the one in the middle. There's so much more to colour mixing, but I hope you've enjoyed this little bit we've done today. I'm Stephen Patterson, and thank you for watching.